Imagine a world where everybody possesses a digital ID, a smartphone, and a bank account. This is where our world today is heading, and these are the three fundamental elements for the new world order.
If you think what are the tools of the new world, everybody should have a digital ID, everybody should have a bank account, everybody should have a smartphone.
Okay.
Then anything can be done. Everything else is built on that.
Because we were talking about this before we came onto the panel, the three basic things: a smartphone, a bank account, and a digital ID.
Yes.
That's where every nation...
In India, it's been named by the Prime Minister the JAM Trinity. Jandan, which is the bank account, Aadhaar, the ID, and mobile.
That shouldn't cost that much.
Oh, nothing. Peanuts.
So what is a digital ID, how is it different from physical IDs, and why should you be concerned about it?
A digital identity is a digital way of proving that you are you. In other words, digital ID is a digital version of the physical IDs that many of us have, be that a national ID card, a health card, driver's license, or passport. Like physical IDs, a digital ID is issued or accredited by the government and requires basic biometric information to create. Biometric information includes any physical attributes that are unique to you, such as your face, your fingerprint, or your iris, the coloured part of your eye. Unlike physical ID documents, a digital ID is stored on an electronic device such as your phone or computer. However, all the data about your digital ID is technically stored by the government or by whichever private company the government has contracted for this purpose. This is a small but significant detail because it means that digital ID systems are extremely centralized and ultimately outside of your control. The government or private company which issues the digital ID has the power to make changes to your digital ID without your consent, including deleting it. Although the government or company which issues your physical ID has access to the same personal information, making changes to your physical ID requires physically confiscating it from you. This is obviously much more difficult to do than changing a few of your settings in a digital ID system. However, the biggest difference between physical IDs and digital IDs is that there are multiple different types of physical IDs, each with their own issuing institution or authority. With a digital ID, your national ID card, your health card, your driver's license, your passport, and even your bank card are all rolled into one. While digital ID systems are only just starting to be rolled out, the research and development so far suggests that your digital ID will be connected to absolutely everything. It'll be linked to the assets you own, it'll be integrated into voting systems, and it could even be required to access the internet. Now, advocates of digital ID insist that these systems will make everything more efficient, more inclusive, and of course, much safer. However, it should be clear by now that digital ID systems have the power to become more evil than anything any religious text could have possibly predicted. Besides making changes to your actual digital ID, the government or private company would have the power to prevent you from purchasing goods or accessing services, including all of those I just mentioned. In short, a digital ID system would be one of total top-down control with no escape. And it's a system that every single country will be rolling out in the coming years.
If you're curious about the source of the push for digital ID, the answer is the United Nations, UN.
Yes, it appears that the United Nations is very keen to introduce a global digital ID system that is linked to individuals' bank accounts.
The UN considers the digital IDs as one of their vehicles to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. United Nations proposes digital ID system tied to bank accounts and mobile payment platforms. The proposal follows a move by the World Economic Forum to explore systems that would track and verify human identities using biometrics. World Economic Forum report admits digital ID could be used for surveillance and persecution. The World Economic Forum has admitted in a new report that digital IDs are exclusionary by nature and can facilitate the identification, surveillance, and persecution of individuals or groups. Several reports have identified a link between a lack of official ID and exclusion from full participation in society. Similarly to how governments worldwide excluded people who refused to take the potentially unsafe and ineffective virus-19 shots during the pandemic, those who will resist complying with the policies of the New World Order or refuse to accept the mark of the beast will be excluded from accessing some benefits. This digital ID can be used as a surveillance tool to coerce individuals into modifying their behavior. So how do you force an individual to adopt the digital ID if they don't want to? Well, one way to compel individuals to adopt a digital ID, even if they are reluctant, is to create circumstances that make life extremely difficult for them without the digital ID. Create a situation where the digital ID becomes a mandatory requirement for accessing essential services or benefits. For instance, one approach is to make the possession of a digital ID a requirement for obtaining the central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. This would create a situation in which individuals would face significant difficulties or limitations in their daily lives if they choose not to adopt the digital ID. Some countries are already rolling out the digital IDs. Ethiopia to make digital ID mandatory for banking operations. According to an announcement of the joint initiative by the National Bank of Ethiopia, the country's central bank, and the National ID program, the plan is to get all bank customers enrolled for the digital ID in the course of the 2023-2024 financial year in a move that seeks to accelerate government's financial inclusion ambition. In contrast to their discussions about financial inclusion, the system itself is designed to exclude individuals who opt for a life of freedom and choose not to conform to the norms of the new world. Nigerian banks given deadline to close accounts not linked to ID. The Central Bank of Nigeria has issued a directive to banks in Nigeria, instructing them to close accounts that have not been linked to a biometric bank verification number within 30 days. Nigeria to ban cash withdrawals from government accounts. Nigeria will ban cash withdrawals from government accounts and push toward a cashless economy. As an alternative to physical currency, the prominent option in this cashless movement is the implementation of central bank digital currency, CBDC. In Nigeria now, your cell phone will be blocked without digital ID. U.S. Digital Identity Bill passes through to Senate. Now as every step is rapidly being established to facilitate the preparation grounds for the coming Sunday law, or the mark of the beast, it's crucial for you, as a child of God, to be prepared for the impending suffering and persecution. This sealing time demands your readiness and resolve. While they are putting measures in place, seize the opportunity to secure your seal of God on your forehead. Stay steadfast in your faith and trust in God's guidance during these challenging times. The most crucial primary tool in setting the world up for the coming Sunday law or the mark of the beast is the CBDC. To discover more about it and why governments or the world leaders are heading towards the CBDC, watch this video next.